Ambassador Sarah Chen had always known that humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council carried risks. What she hadn't expected was to become a living symbol of everything the elder races feared about the newcomers from Sol. The crystalline halls of the Council Station orbited the neutral system of Kepler 442, a testament to 3,000 years of peaceful cooperation between the Zephyrians, Molari, and the ancient hegemony. For millennia, these three species had maintained perfect order across their sectors of the galaxy, their cold logic governing trade, territorial disputes, and the occasional integration of primitive species. Humans were supposed to be just another primitive species. The mammals from Sol 3 demonstrate concerning patterns, High Counselor Zexathari announced, his metallic voice resonating through the chamber. The insectoid hegemony representative's compound eyes fixed on Sarah as she stood in the defendant's circle. Uncontrolled aggression, emotional decision-making, rapid technological advancement without wisdom. Sarah kept her composure despite the translator's cold rendering of what amounted to a death sentence. Around her, holographic displays showed carefully selected footage, human conflicts, environmental damage, the hasty construction of their first FTL drives. The prosecution had built their case methodically, as elder races always did. "Your Honor," Sarah began, her voice steady, "humanity acknowledges our imperfections. We came here not as conquerors, but as students, seeking to learn from civilizations that have mastered what we still struggle with." The Zephyrian counselor, a being of pure energy contained within a geometric prism, pulsed with what the translation matrix rendered as amusement. Observe the specimen's words. It speaks of learning, yet their military vessels patrol our borders. It claims peaceful intent while their species wages war upon itself even as we deliberate. Sarah's jaw tightened. The footage they showed was real but incomplete. They didn't show the humanitarian missions, the environmental restoration projects, the gradual decline in global conflicts as humanity looked outward to the stars. They certainly didn't show the defensive nature of those military patrols, a response to increasingly hostile encounters with the elder race's own forces. "The verdict is unanimous," the Molari representative announced, its translated voice carrying an odd musical quality. "The human species represents a clear and present danger to galactic stability. As per Protocol 7 of the Hegemony Accords, the specimen will be terminated as a demonstration to its kind. Cleansing flame shall carry our message to Sol." The enforcement drones emerged from wall recesses before Sarah could react. Neural inhibitors locked her muscles as they dragged her to the ceremonial platform. She had time for one thought as the plasma igniters activated around her. They had no idea what they'd just done. The flames consumed Ambassador Sarah Chen in full view of the quantum-entangled communication array that broadcast council proceedings across the galaxy. Her final words, somehow clear despite the roar of superheated gas, were picked up by every receiver in human space. "Remember us." Admiral Marcus Webb received the transmission aboard the dreadnought Indomitable as humanity's combined fleets held position at the edge of Council space. He watched in silence as Earth's finest diplomat died for the crime of being human. Around him, the bridge crew stood frozen, faces reflecting his own cold fury. "Sir," his communications officer finally whispered. "Orders?" Webb studied the tactical display showing the positions of Earth's fleets, the Martian Defense Force, the independent colony's militias, and the asteroid mining consortium's surprisingly well-armed security forces. In the weeks since the Council's invitation for diplomatic talks, humanity had quietly positioned every armed vessel it possessed. The elder races had expected the mammals to be primitive. They had assumed human technology would be centuries behind their own. They had calculated based on their own measured, logical approach to advancement. They had not accounted for a species that could go from first flight to orbital mechanics in 60 years. They had not considered what drove humans to innovate faster under pressure. Most critically, they had never encountered a civilization that treated warfare as both art and science. "Signal all fleets," Webb commanded. "Execute Order Prometheus." Across 3 star systems, human vessels that had been running silent for weeks suddenly blazed to life. The elder races had sensors that could detect quantum fluctuations across light years, but they had never encountered stealth technology based on gravitational lensing and exotic matter. They had energy shields that could deflect stellar radiation, but no defense against weapons that folded spacetime itself. The first shots came not from humanity's great battleships, but from seemingly empty space around the Council station. Quantum torpedoes, weapons that existed in probability rather than certainty until the moment of impact, materialized inside the station's shielded core. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. High Counselor Zexathari had exactly enough time to register impossible readings on his sensors before the Indomitable materialized from behind the station's own sensor shadow. The Dreadnought's main cannon, a device that temporarily converted matter into dark energy, spoke once. The entire hegemony fleet simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but translated into a form of energy that interacted with nothing in this dimension. The Zephyrian response was swift but predictable. Their energy-based weapons could strip electrons from atoms across impossible distances. What they couldn't account for were targets that weren't quite in the same dimensional space they were firing at. Human ships flickered in and out of phase with reality, striking from angles that didn't exist in conventional physics. The Molari tried to flee. Their vessels were elegant, efficient, designed for peaceful purposes and occasional police actions against primitive species. They were not built to face weapons that turned their own harmonics against them, or to survive attacks from enemies who could predict their movements by analyzing the mathematical poetry of their communications. It was over in 17 minutes. Admiral Webb stood in the ruins of the Council chambers, his combat armor still radiating heat from atmospheric entry. Around him, human Marines secured the station while engineers began downloading 3 millennia of galactic records. The elder races had built their empire on the assumption that warfare was inefficient, that violence was the tool of primitives. They had never faced primitives who made an art of war. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 14 systems. The Rigel Confederation is offering to negotiate. The Vegan Trade Alliance wants to discuss defensive pacts." Webb nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the ceremonial platform where Sarah had died. The scorch marks were already being preserved by the historical team, humanity's first monument in Council space. "Tell them we'll talk," he said finally. "But the terms are simple. Humanity takes Sarah's seat on the Council, and we establish our own protocols for diplomatic immunity." The aide hesitated. "And if they refuse, sir?" Admiral Webb smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Then they get to learn what happens when you really make humanity angry." The message that went out to every corner of the galaxy was simple. The age of the elder races was over. The mammals from Sol had arrived, and they played by different rules entirely.